So your keyboard is probably the nastiest piece of your computer. And let's think about it. You play games on it long periods of time, friends come over, they touch it, you snack around and then you touch on your keyboard not wiping your hands. You have a nice adult beverages, start drinking and you spill and you wipe it off, you know, but then it gets into the little crevices on it, animals, dead skin cells. I mean, it gets pretty crusty and rough. And this keyboard is definitely no stranger to it. I mean, if you look at it, and the camera really don't do it justice over here, I got a lot of hair that does not belong to me. A lot of, yeah, that's some nasty stuff right over here. And it's just all over it. Even this piece right over here, let's see. Oh yeah, that sticky stuff has some hair in it that's definitely kind of gross. And another thing that people kind of forget is the old smokers. You know, the smokers, you know, they hold their cigarette while they're gaming or just dangling from their mouth. They get their ashes in here and they just tend to get pretty gross. And these things get really yellow and grimy from all that nicotine. So yeah, it's pretty dirty on it. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to clean this, my tips and techniques on what I do, and how you can kind of make your keyboard look good again, you know, give your whole gaming computer a nice fancy new look to it. So that's what we're going to do on it. Not to mention that a lot of times people throw out their keyboards because they're so nasty and they don't want to deal with cleaning it. So you can actually save some money and pick up something nice or sell it or throw it as a bonus if you're flipping a computer and just by cleaning it. Honestly, if I was to sell this keyboard as is, ain't nobody gonna buy it with this unknown junk on it. So that's one way to do it. Number one is the initial and the preliminary. So I do not like to use harsh chemicals such as isopropyl alcohol and any type of degreasers and heavy compounds. Number one, they tend to fade the finish over here. So if you have that nice finish, they can fade it and dull it out. And number two, they can actually kind of wipe away the letters over here. And then that don't look too good. So typically what I do is if I'm on top of cleaning my keyboard and I just wipe it every now and then, I'll take a microfiber towel, which I like to do, dunk it in some water, or what I like to do is dilute dish soap over here and wipe it down, and that kind of helps to maintain the keyboard. And then while doing that, I'll also take some compressed air or a datavac, which I like using, and just kind of blow out all the nooks and crannies. And then for the final thing, you just go ahead and just kind of shake it upside down and watch it rain chips and other stuff that you got stuck in there. And that's usually the initial way that most people clean it and how I tend to clean it. Now level 2 is what we're going to focus on today. Level 2 is when you've neglected the keyboard, or better yet, you bought the keyboard from somebody and you start looking at it and you start going through it and you start seeing, let's see if I get some light over here. Level 2 is when you start going through the keyboard and you start looking at it and you realize, wow, there's a lot of junk in there. I got a bunch of hair, sticky stuff, grimy. Yeah, that don't look nice. And you just realize how gross this keyboard is. This spot right over here is attracting a whole bunch of hair in there. So this keyboard's pretty nasty. And typically that's either you've neglected your keyboard for a prolonged period of time. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So here's what you're going to need. Number one, your keyboard, obviously. And number two, your cleaning agent. Like I said, I don't like using harsh chemicals because they can cause some damage, some fading and stuff like that. So that's something I don't like to use. Q-tips, microfiber towel. I like using these because you can reuse them and they clean and they work great. And paper towels just tend to kind of break apart and just leave the little fibers and particles in here, so you don't want to get anything jammed up in there. And then I have 2 small buckets of water, and they're mixed with more concentrate of water and just a tiny little bit of Dawn dish soap. I like Dawn dish soap because number one, it's safe for the little duckies, just like it shows on the bottle. And number two, it doesn't fade, it doesn't really mess anything up on the keyboard. And yeah, I just think it's a great detergent. Now my second bucket is going to be for the keys, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. So now another thing that I do recommend doing is picking up a kit to help clean the keyboard. Now you don't have to have this, and this is actually a tool to remove the keys, but in my opinion I find this to be the safest, and here's why. Yes, we all know that you could take this and pop this off real easy, but then when you start getting into these keys, sometimes if you pop it in the wrong angle or put too much pressure on one side, you can actually break the key. And if you look at it, you see the little plastic pieces in there. Too much pressure, you'll break it, and then, well, now you gotta order new keys or hope somebody could 3D print it for you. So definitely try to get the tool. That's my recommendation. Do you need it? No, but it does help, and it is a good safety practice. Now this tool also has the provisions to remove the micro switches, which is right over here, and if we wanted to, we could pop that in and pop these out. I'm pretty sure that we don't need to go that far in this one, and we'll talk about that in just a few, but at least we have the tool. Also with this kit, it comes with these little brushes, and these little brushes are really good at just kind of brushing all this stuff out. We can also apply a little water in it and just kind of help agitate it. Because the bristles are plastic and a little more tough, when we put a little water in there, we can agitate this and kind of help break that out, whatever the microfiber cloth doesn't do. And of course, our Q-tips, which I talked about, in which we can kind of get into the crevices and start really getting this nice and clean, and it helps us out pretty good. Can of compressed air, which is great, or you can use a datavac, which I like using. I save a lot of money doing this. I think it was a $40 investment, but worth every penny. And this would kind of help blow off all the initial cruds and crevices on it. So this is what I use, and let's start going by each step. All right, so the first thing that you want to do, in my opinion, is, unless you have a really good photographic memory, which I don't, I recommend taking a picture so you can remember where it was. Sometimes these keyboards have bonus keys and all that stuff, and yeah, so you don't have to go crazy looking for it. Take a good picture. Now, if you forget to do that, get on the old interweb and you can look it up that way. So now that we've taken our picture, the next thing I want to do is take out all these keys, and I'm going to use this tool right over here, and pretty much you just go to one side, opens up to the other side, it gets right underneath, and it pulls right up. So I'm going to kind of zoom you in a little bit and kind of show you. You go one side, other side, right in, and it latches it pretty good, and it pulls right up. And by pulling up evenly, you don't worry about breaking any of the plastic in between. So then after I do that, what I'm actually going to go ahead and do next is dump it in my water. And I'm going to let it soak for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead, strip out this keyboard, and then we'll talk about cleaning that up. Now, something I want to mention when you're taking out these keys, the space bar and typically the shift keys right over here, they tend to have stabilizers. Now, every keyboard is different, and this is something to keep in mind. Some companies use springs, which means that they have little springs and little levers that kind of help stabilize the space bar so it's not getting hit on one side and then not hitting the actual switch in the middle. So by having that stabilizer, it allows you to press it at regardless of what end of the key you're pressing, it still hits the switch. Now, do some research and make sure you determine what type of key that you have, what type of setup that you have. If you have the spring, the spring or the little metal piece, I wish I had an example to show you, don't take it out, because here's why. You try to put it back together and it is a nightmare. It is not fun. And honestly, this keyboard, this space bar, and the same thing with the shifts over here, once you take out all the keys, these you can actually just clean it with your microfiber towel, your Q-tips and everything, and just clean it on the board and not have to worry about it. Now, if you have an issue where these keys are sticking, then what I recommend doing is learning how to take it out, watch a video or a guide, and that way you can learn how to put it back together. Just to kind of take good note of how you put it in. I only take these out if, number one, I have this type of setup where I don't have the springs, or number two, that I'm sticking and I really need to get in there. All right, so our keyboard is now naked and all of our keys are in here. So what I just go ahead and do is I just kind of shake it around, stir it up pretty good, just move it, and it's mostly let it soak. That way when we take the microfiber towel and we start wiping it and everything, all that junk will wipe off pretty easy. So now for our keyboard over here, what you want to start doing first, and this is my opinion that kind of determines the level of in-depthness that you need to go with it, is start going through each one. And you could have done this prior to taking them apart, but hit all your switches and make sure that they are still springy, they pop up, and they feel good. If you have one that is sticky or a bunch that is sticky, there's a good chance that you're going to have to start taking out these macro switches or excuse me, you have to start taking out the switches for the keyboard and then clean it a lot better. Now, if they are getting sticky and all that stuff, you might need to get a little bit of lube once you clean it because it's going to wipe off. They sell a special lube just for it to kind of put in there to kind of help bring it back. But for the most part, this keyboard, all the keys seem to be pretty good. They come up. And prior to this, I did test this keyboard out. It worked fine. So now we look into it. As you can see, all the nitty gritty grossness of it. So here's what we're going to start doing. I'm actually going to start with these Q-tips, and I'm actually going to go ahead and just start wetting them. Make sure they're not super damp, and just start going and getting all this stuff in. This is tedious. This will take a while, but the whole point is that you don't want to use too much water and take a chance of getting water in here. Now, after cleaning this, my recommendation is to kind of let it dry for a couple of hours. And the reason why I recommend a couple of hours is just in case you missed water and it got in there and you're not aware of it. Also, using the datavac will kind of help to blow anything out over here, but just kind of keep that in mind. Now, I've already just kind of done a small little area, and as you can see, look how disgusting that is. I mean, that is pretty bad. And if I go ahead and use a clean one, yeah, and that's just years of somebody else's gunk and junk. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to clean this all up, going back and forth with my Q-tips, using this if I need something more adjutant to kind of get in there, and using my microfiber cloth to kind of wipe off what I've already cleaned. We'll clean this up, and we'll come back, we'll take a look at those keys. That's pretty gross. So that's pretty good. It's a lot better. Cleaner, smells better. So I also made sure that I wiped it, that I wiped the back, and even the cables. Believe it or not, the cables get pretty nasty and gross on it. So just wipe it down. Like I said, water with a little bit of dish soap, the all natural good stuff on that, and this thing goes a long way. So this thing looks a lot better. I've went through all the keys, and all the keys feel good. And I'm comfortable with the fact that we don't need to take this down another level and open this up and clean it more in-depthly. Now, if the keys were getting sticky and you had a lot more keys getting sticky, one thing that you can do is take your Q-tip, push down on the key like this, and just kind of go back and forth inside over here just to kind of clean it, because most of the times where it does tend to stick is right inside where the switch actually goes down, the little four corners in there. That's usually where it gets gummed up in there. And if you go through each four quarters with the Q-tip over there, just like that, that will actually free it up, and then you take your compressed air and blow it. And typically what you could do after that is take the lube that they sell for this and just put a drop in there, hit it multiple times, and that will free it up, and that should be good. And the next thing that I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to address these keys. So these have been soaking for quite some time. Well, probably for about an hour. I exaggerate a little bit. This actually took me about an hour to clean the keyboard and just being very thorough in it. But these should be good. They feel a lot better. They don't feel as sticky as they were, so they should be good on it. And typically I just kind of go back and forth and agitate it, and just to kind of make sure that it's given time for the soap to kind of break down whatever grime it is. Now this part is very tedious, and it's probably my least favorite part, but it's got to be done. Now what you get to do is you get to take each key just like this and wipe it with your microfiber cloth, and just going through each side, making sure that all the gunk and junk and nasty suspicious stuff that don't belong there is gone. Now if you look, don't forget to check the back, because the back of this also had some stuff that it caught up. And what we can do is we can actually go ahead and use a Q-tip and kind of get the back side of it and getting all the hair. Mostly it's hair and gummy stuff. If you look at it right over here, yeah, that's pretty gross. And I'll show you guys all the Q-tips once we're done. You're just going to go through each key one by one until you're satisfied with it. I go until it's clean, until it looks newer-ish. Newer-ish is better than before, so that will work. And then once you're done using our picture that we took, we could go ahead and we could match it up. Now, I've been a PC gamer and a PC enthusiast for many years, but I'll tell you this right now, I cannot tell you where all these keys go. This muscle memory, so I'd rather do it this way than having to figure it out and then look retarded when I'm pressing a button and it's not working. So I'm gonna go ahead, clean these out one by one, and then we should be able to wrap this up. On the back of these keyboards, yes, we need to clean them out, but don't forget, this is also going to hold water. By taking the air, either your can of compressed air, which I recommend getting this if you're going to do this, because this will go through a lot of can of compressed airs. Just go ahead and blow this out, and this is going to blow out all the water and any crud that was in there that when you wiped it out, that didn't want to come out. So 2 quick tips to putting this back together. So now back to the long haul. A little while later, and our keyboard is done. It works. And it looks great. I mean, it just looks so much cleaner than it was before. Obviously, everything works. I've checked all the keys and it just looks fantastic. Now, there are a couple of keys that has some of that, I think it's the resin from a 3D printer, if you ask me, in my opinion, that's kind of stuck on it. I don't want to scrape them off and damage the keys any more than they need to. And if you kind of look over here, I guess the guy was kind of a smoker or something like that. You got some cigarette ash burn over there, but you really don't see it. It doesn't affect the operation of it. And honestly, if I was really adamant about making this thing perfect, then I could probably get these keys for about $1 or $2. Just get a couple extra keys. I know they sell the entire key kit for this for like $30, and considering that this is a $100 keyboard and $30 for it, it might be worth it. But you know what, this is fine. It works. The RGB goodness is amazing on it, and I like this keyboard. So just kind of look over here. As you can see, our Q-tips are just, I mean, disgusting. I mean, this thing was just really nasty, disgusting. Our water over here is a little discolored, and I don't know if you see it in there, but we got some hair action going on in there, so that was pretty nasty. So kind of sum it up, guys, this is really easy to do, and honestly, it's a must. Basic keyboard maintenance prevents you from having to go this far. Just wiping it down with a damp microfiber towel will kind of keep all this grime from getting on there and just getting in between there. I do always recommend having a brush, because even if you're not having to do this type of cleaning, the brush will just get all the crap and gunk out of there, and that works great. And then the simplest, easiest trick is just to turn the keyboard over and just shake it and get all the crumbs and stuff out of it. And then also, if this thing is really bad and you're having some issues, I mean, it's really bad, the last resort, and I've seen a bunch of videos doing on it, I don't recommend it. I highly don't recommend it. You can take this apart, put this in the dishwasher, but I mean, it just gets involved. You have to make sure this thing is thoroughly dry. If you do get more water in here than you plan, just doing like the second level cleaning of it, just dry it out with this to blow it out, and just let it sit for a couple of days or a couple of hours, just depending on how bad water you get in there. But the key is that if you get water in there, you need to get it out, blow it out. If it falls more in there or you splash while doing this, you might have to take it apart and clean those connections just using some deoxit or some electrical connector cleaner. So guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Very simple, very must. Keep your keyboards clean, maintain them. Honestly, with this, I got this keyboard free in a deal. I could flip it easily for about 50-60 bucks if I wanted to, but after looking at this keyboard, I definitely like this better than my Razer keyboard. So I think this is going to be my personal keyboard, and we'll just go ahead and retire my Razer one. So thanks for watching. Comment down below, let me know your thoughts and your recommendations for cleaning. If you like this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and as always, we'll see what we come up with next.